Good afternoon. This is Kathleen Dudley. I wanted to upload some of my writing from Substack for you. And if you're interested in becoming a member of my Substack page, it's at Kathleen Dudley. And Substack is substack.com. I look forward to any comments. This is called The Artificial Intelligence Deliberately Dumbing Down America and the World, written January 2026. In 1999, when Charlotte Iserbyt wrote The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, a chronological paper trail, and John Taylor Gatto, The Dumbing Us Down, The Hidden Curriculum of Compulsory Schooling, in 2005, both writers understood the forces government was using to destroy the minds and learning of our children through their mandated public school system. In the foreword of Mrs. Iserbyt's book, quote, "Anyone interested in the truth will be shocked by the way American social engineers have systematically gone about destroying the intellect of millions of American children for the purpose of leading the American people into a socialist, and I add, communist, world government, controlled by behavioral and social scientists. We have fully arrived here at the threshold and the presence of this world government, with its ultimate use of artificial intelligence, AI, computers, and cell phones. The likelihood that individual thought and action drive people's choices and decisions today is diminishing exponentially as I type this essay. Over 25 years ago, Charlotte Iserbyt presented to us this outcome of the mental degradation of the minds of American society through the actions and persuasions of the U.S. government in lockstep with a one-world government. The foreword in her book goes on to say, quote, Mrs. Iserbyt has also documented the gradual transformation of our once academically successful education system into one devoted to training children to become compliant human resources to be used by government and industry for their own purposes. She goes on to say, the government will plan your life for you, and unless you comply with government restrictions and regulations, your ability to pursue a career of your own choice will be severely limited. The American people are underwriting the destruction of their own government and way of life by lavishly financing through federal grants the very socialist scientists who are undermining our national sovereignty and preparing our children to become the dumbed-down vassals of the New World Order, unquote. This is neither a conspiracy theory nor a science fiction book written by Mrs. Iserbyt, but a rational observation and discovery after working as a senior policy advisor for the Department of Education during the first term of U.S. President Ronald Reagan in the early 1980s. Mrs. Iserbyt reveals how the social engineers use a deliberately created education crisis to move their agenda forward by offering radical reforms that are sold to the public as fixing the crisis, which they never do. The new reforms simply set the stage for the next crisis, which provides the pretext for the next move forward. This is the dialectical process at work, a process our behavioral engineers have learned to use very effectively. Its success depends upon the ability of the change agents to continually deceive the public, which tends to believe anything the experts tell them, says Mrs. Iserbyt. She goes on to state that Americans, quote, forget that the present government education system started as a Prussian import in the 1840s to 50s, inserted, ultimately influenced by Karl Marx, author of the Communist Manifesto in 1848, unquote. It was a system built on Hegel's belief that the state was God walking on earth. We see this Hegelian dialectic today unfolding before us, problem, reaction, solution, created to instill powerlessness, fear, and ultimately a solution to entrap and enslave. Thankfully, there is a growing trend among enlightened parents to homeschool their children. As Mrs. Isabet stated, quote, "The only way to restore educational freedom and put education back into the hands of the parents where it belongs is to get the federal government with its coercive policies out of education," unquote. She goes on to say that, quote, "The billions of dollars being spent by the federal government to destroy educational freedom must be halted, and that can only be done by getting American legislators to understand that the American people want to remain a free people in charge of their own lives and the education of their children," unquote. I think that might be a little late, but the parents can certainly take their children out of the schools. From the last 5 years since COVID, it appears, however, that the dumbing down of America is not only of our children, but the adults as well. Everyone who spends their lives addicted to their cell phones and computers, searching for so-called AI facts, answers, and truth, purpose, and excitement, has lost their way, in every sense of the meaning. It is not unusual that people today spend nearly every awakened hour sitting either in a car with their cell phone or in a chair in front of a TV or computer, holding their scrying mirror in their hand or tucked in their breast pocket or next to their genitals in their pants pocket. But 50 years ago, this would read like science fiction and be discarded as sheer madness. How many books a year does the average American read today, per month, per week, to learn and become an educated man, woman, or child? Adolf Hitler, according to General Leon Degrelle, read a book a day. He studied the writings of knowledge and understanding of Buddha, Confucius, and Jesus Christ, as well as Luther, Calvin, and Savonarola, of literary giants such as Dante, Schiller, Shakespeare, and Goethe, and analytical writers such as Renan and Gobineau, Chamberlain, and Sorel. He trained himself in philosophy by studying Aristotle and Plato. He could quote entire paragraphs of Schopenhauer from memory. Nietzsche taught him much about willpower. He spent hundreds of hours studying the works of Tacitus and Mommsen, military strategists such as Clausewitz, and empire builders such as Bismarck. Nothing escaped him. World history or the history of civilizations, the study of the Bible and the Talmud, Thomistic philosophy, and all the masterpieces of Homer, Sophocles, Horace, Ovid, Titus, Livius, and Cicero. He knew Julian the Apostate as if he had been his contemporary. This all comes from the book by Leon Degrelle, 1993, The Bad War. But 100 years ago, the education of a self-educated man, such as Adolf Hitler, included ancient and contemporary philosophy, religious and spiritual history, including Christianity and Judaism, the masterpieces from ancient civilizations, and military strategists, all based upon source material, untampered original writings not yet altered by the omnius veritas publishers of today, who take authored books and change the meaning and recording of events to produce meaningless events rife with rubbish, thereby destroying the historical content and truth from our past. Today, this educated man far outshines the learning and acquired knowledge of everyone in contemporary society, unless unique and unusual circumstances come their way. Scholars like John Lamb Lash, author of the seminal Gnostics text, Not in His Image, describes 2 impediments keeping us from realizing our full potential: the lack of self-confidence and circumstances. Both the government public education system and the rewriting of texts to destroy the facts and truth of history meet both of these criteria, colliding straight on, ensuring dulled and wayward minds of our children and selves. The mind is a beautiful and sacred creation which is being infiltrated by ideology, using technological apparatuses that rob the integrity, the curiosity, creativity, and ultimately dumb and numb down the action of our children and adults. The crime is nearly invisible, perhaps the greatest crime in history. Socrates understood self-reflection and introspection, known and murdered by the courts for this wisdom. Quote, "A life without self-examination is not worth living," unquote. Without introspection and discernment, the mind is vulnerable to the machinations by the masters, directing their ongoing historical narrative of control over the masses today. Quote, "Educated men are as much superior to uneducated men as the living are to the dead." Aristotle, 384 to 322 BC. A life in front of a computer screen, a scrying mirror of the cell phone, tapping keys, asking questions of AI, and plagiarizing this technocratic God's responses, or emotionally bonding with an AI creation out of loneliness, confusion, or sheer madness, warns us that the collapse and implosion of our minds has begun, and without a serious intervention, lost to a world of infinite fiction and emptiness. Artificiality. AI and its masters give us only what we want us to know. Only what they want us to know, limiting our knowledge into their narrowly molded narrative, dumbing us down in every direction, as if a metaphorical vice grip from the top, bottom, and sides, squeezing us into a smaller, more manageable existence, nearly dead but still breathing, our life force masked, diminished, but enough breath to accomplish the bidding of our masters. The existence is grim to the free man, but the slave willingly accepts the morsels out of sheer subservience and laziness that has overtaken his will. Anton Chekhov saw this in his fellow humans and set about living an exemplary life to show them a way of purpose and fulfillment, only to discover that we each choose our path forward. I wonder if anyone can doubt this dumbing down. Here is a short list of my reading words from writers, historians, poets, and scholars, men born a short 100 years ago, raised during troubled times, yet wrote, conversed, and thought about the inequities, their financial or political struggles, families, and future generations. Not unlike Socrates, they spent their lifetimes exploring themselves and others through dialogue, study, reading, writing, and social engagements. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Leo Tolstoy, Alexander Pushkin, Henri Troyat, Anthony Sutton, Eustace Mullins, Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, Walt Whitman, Rudyard Kipling, Arthur Schopenhauer, Friedrich Nietzsche, Henry Ford, and Will Durant are but a few whose vocabulary alone gives us reason to gasp at the loss of our ability to communicate with the literacy and beauty nearly dead to most in the 21st century. Lugubrious, prevaricate, vaticinations, reprobation, effrontery, remonstrance, calumny, accorded, execrable, energuments, protuberant, truculent, sententious, premonitory, prolix, redoubtable, termagants, somnolent, physiognomy, reambulated, grandiloquence, alacrity, alglent, barbarousness, turgescent, propounding, obscience, orotund, porphyry, finicical, unificent, expatiated. I can guarantee that AI does not include such a vocabulary, nor did any mid to late 20th century public schooling, let alone 21st century. The tightly wound AI gibberish expands not one curious mind, nor triggers one creative, beautiful thought, but implodes and dulls rather than builds, as it is intended to do, just as the government schooling, the Skinner philosophy, and the Hegelian dialectic teach. The game plan has been underway for many decades, and today we are seeing AI fully in action, fully destructive, and fully embraced by those mindlessly engaging in the dialectical process at work, being deceived by the change agents and whatever the experts tell them. A few quotes worth contemplating in a lifetime of artificiality that intends to steal life from our very core, to dull and ultimately destroy our minds. Courage is the first virtue, because without it, none of the rest are possible. Aristotle. Give me liberty or give me death. Patrick Henry. The kingdom of God is within. Leo Tolstoy. Thank you.